Okay, let's unpack this. We've been handed a dense stack of documents detailing what begins as a profoundly disturbing yet seemingly standard serial murder case.
Right, in the sweltering heat of New Orleans.
Exactly. It starts with a killer collecting trophies, and it ends with, well, a confrontation that just shatters every known rule of biology, anatomy, and, frankly, human history.
And that familiarity you mentioned, that's what makes the pivot so shocking. I mean, we start with homicide detectives, people trained to deal with the absolute worst of human depravity. And we watch them realize in real time that the psychopath they thought they were hunting he's actually a minor player.
A footnote, almost.
Almost.
Yeah.
A footnote in a 200-year-old clandestine war. It's a conflict rooted in this impossible synthetic science that you can trace all the way back to the 19th century's darkest legends.
So our mission today is to synthesize the true depth of this tragedy. We're moving from the initial forensic shockwaves, and we'll get to the victim with two hearts.
We will.
All the way through the psychology of this so-called new race, to understanding the modern identities of the creator, Victor Frankenstein, who now goes by Victor Helios, and his first furious creation, Deucalion.
We're going past the legend. This is about the molecular truth of their conflict.
The entry point into this terrifying new reality is through two very human detectives. They're just trying to navigate the humid, often absurd, local color overload of New Orleans homicide work.
And this is where we meet Carson O'Connor and Michael Maddison.
Right. And their relationship, which the sources detail so well, is the human element we have to anchor to.
Carson is the sharp, highly professional force driving this whole investigation. She's quick-witted, but she's perpetually high-strung. I mean, she's holding herself together with this enormous professional effort.
The sources have this great detail about her.
A walk,
Yeah, that she needs that 5-minute decompression walk from her car to the front steps of her beautiful, gingerbread veranda house.
Before she can handle home life.
Exactly. Before she can switch gears to caring for her autistic brother, Arnie, and their caregiver, Vicky, it's like she's moving from the chaos of human evil to the flawed, loved peace of her private world.
And Michael is the perfect counterweight to that. He's the easygoing friend who, he weaponizes humor to manage the emotional weight of what they do.
He shows up with a maple-glazed buttermilk donut already in his mouth,
Knowing she'll snatch it.
knowing she will absolutely snatch it before he gets a single bite. And that reliance on routine, on that playful connection, is what keeps them grounded when everything starts going sideways.
And at first, the case seems tragically normal. They're tracking a killer they've nicknamed the Surgeon.
His signature was gruesome, but, comprehensible in a Law and Order kind of way.
Right. The early victims, Shelley Justine, Meg Seville, Bradford Walden, they were all chloroformed and killed instantly. A single knife plunge to the heart. Very clean.
But the forensics on those first cases were unsettling because of the discipline involved. The mutilations, the removal of specific anatomical souvenirs like ears, feet, hands.
They were post-mortem surgeries.
Yeah, executed with this exquisite precision, almost a clinical detachment.
And the blood analysis confirmed that detachment. This is crucial. There were 0 elevated endorphin levels in the victim's systems.
Meaning what exactly?
Meaning they felt no pain, no terror. They were likely unconscious or already dead before any of the mutilation began. This spoke to a very specific cold-blooded ritual, not some kind of frenzy.
And they do catch the man responsible for this.
They do. Roy Prebeau.
And Prebeau was not some struggling deviant living in a basement. He was wealthy, idealistic, a purist from a powerful political family, insulated by generations of wealth and influence.
He saw his horrific acts not as crimes, but as a form of, Renaissance art. He was collecting female perfection, but only focused on the externals.
Right, he had this deep intellectual contempt for humanity. He saw the media and the public as, and this is a quote, knaves speaking to fools.
His political background taught him how easy it was to manipulate people. He wasn't collecting trophies for dominance. He was collecting perfect, isolated, anatomical forms.
Like the flawless hands of one victim, which is so similar to the Elizabeth Lavenza descriptions in the original text.
Exactly. And then he'd consign the depressingly imperfect remainder of the body to the canals. He was just a pure human psychopath, driven by elitism and vanity.
But the case pivots. It pivots violently with the next victim. The Allwine anomaly.
Bobby Allwine, a night security guard found in the Central Library, also killed, also with his heart removed. But Carson and Michael, they immediately felt the scene was just wrong, profoundly unnatural.
It defied all the forensic logic of a struggle. There was a tight blood-wet zone.
Which means the victim was already in place and didn't thrash or move after the injury.
And then there was Allwine's face. He wasn't terrified. He wasn't surprised. He looked awake, but profoundly relaxed. Serene, even.
Carson noted that he seemed to have welcomed his murder. And when your entire job is finding human fear, finding serene acceptance in a homicide victim is a massive, massive alarm bell.
The initial details were cryptic. There was a scattering of books on aberrant psychology, suggesting Allwine was studying something dark, maybe trying to understand himself, right up until the end.
But the real depth of the anomaly was in his living space.
The apartment investigation is where the normal procedural structure just completely collapsed.
Allman's apartment was shocking. I mean, it was meticulously clean, yet painted entirely black.
We're talking everything. Black walls, black floors, black furniture.
Even the inside of the refrigerator was painted a uniform, deep black.
And the air was thick with this strange, pervasive scent of licorice from dozens of unlit black candles. The only piece of furniture in the living room was a single, battered black vinyl armchair.
Carson observed that this wasn't the setup of classic despair or depression. It was, quote, energetic anger.
Right. He'd lived there for 2 years but owned almost nothing, as if he existed only in transit. But if the living room was a study in pure, contained rage,
the bathroom was a scream.
In stark contrast to the rest of the apartment, the bathroom was dazzling white.
And bristling from the sheetrock, embedded row after row, were hundreds of single-edged, unused razor blades, like silver fangs lining the walls.
And Carson realized instantly, these weren't weapons for self-harm. They were emblems of failed attempts at suicide.
A testament to a desperate, crushing inability to die. The victim was a prisoner of his own existence, caged by some unknown mechanism.
And this realization leads directly to the forensic shockwave that didn't just break the case.
It broke reality itself.
This is the moment. The medical examiner, Jack Rogers, and his assistant, Luke, they had to dismiss the rest of the staff because what they found just couldn't be exposed to chatter.
The findings were profound and terrifying. Allwine possessed anatomical improvements that simply do not happen through natural human mutation.
And the most immediate shock
was the double circulatory system served by 2 separate functional hearts.
Okay, let's pause on that. 2 hearts. From a purely scientific perspective, if this is design, like Rogers claimed, what is the purpose of that massive biological redundancy?
The sources suggest it's redundancy and overwhelming efficiency. I mean, a single human heart limits your stamina, your strength.
Sure.
2 hearts would allow for massive physical output, instant recovery from immense exertion, and an increased cellular demand supply that allows for their rapid healing capabilities, which we'll definitely get into later.
It's an engine designed not for survival, but for overwhelming physical dominance.
Exactly. And on top of that, his cranium showed incredible molecular density. So his brain, or at least the protection around it, was structurally enhanced beyond human measure.
It's the difference between like a naturally evolved vehicle and a highly specialized military-grade machine.
And Jack Rogers, a man who has seen everything, he was visibly shaken when he stated unequivocally, this isn't mutation, this is design.
And that one word, design, it changes everything. Suddenly, Prevo's grotesque art is completely irrelevant.
The focus shifts entirely to the designer. Michael, trying desperately to keep a lid on the impossible, suggests they immediately blind file the autopsy report, just hide the truth from the system.
They file it under Munster, Herman.
A nice touch. But the coordinated response from the designer was swift, precise, and frankly, terrifyingly efficient.
We're talking about a high-security morgue, yet Allwine's corpse, all the crucial tissue samples, and the carefully blind-filed autopsy report
filed under a fake name
were stolen. Completely vanished.
And this is the first concrete proof of Victor's pervasive power. A lone psychopath doesn't orchestrate this. The theft signaled a massive, sophisticated, highly coordinated effort. They didn't just know where the body was, they knew what Jack Rogers had found, and they knew the exact code name the report was filed under.
Which suggests an immediate internal monitoring system.
Either technological, maybe via implanted devices, or systemic. Meaning Victor has high-level assets or technology embedded deeply within the police and medical establishment. The moment the discovery was made, the designer neutralized the evidence.
And that terrifying level of resources points us directly toward our central antagonist, Victor Helios.
To the world of New Orleans society, he is a figure of immense positive influence. A wealthy philanthropist, the visionary founder of Helios Biovision, a local mover and shaker for nearly 2 decades.
Right, he endows scholarships, he funds cultural benefits, he acquires historical mansions, he projects absolute, modern, respectable power.
But Victor Helios, as the source material confirms, is the long-lived Victor Frankenstein. His public persona is the ultimate camouflage for his private reality. His longevity isn't a metaphor, it's a functional, horrific, and self-inflicted form of immortality.
And the details of that immortality are just gruesome. It's not smooth or clean. He sustains cellular division, which prevents aging, via this thick, flexible metallic cord and various other implants that loop through his torso.
And they're sutured directly to his organs.
He has to submit to a ritualistic electrical current charge twice a day just to sustain this system.
And what's fascinating here is his perception of his own body. He views the massive surgical scars, the sutures, all the things that distort his physical form, the visible consequences of this constant violent self-modification.
So he sees them as what?
Not as flaws, but as badges of his divinity. His goal is to replace flawed humanity with his creations, yet he himself is a grotesque, scarred testament to his own failed quest for biological purity.
His contempt for the human race is absolute, and he's actively working to replace it. His primary operation facility is an abandoned hospital that he's converted into a secret laboratory called Hands of Mercy,
Irony.
dripping with it. And his ultimate goal is self-transfer. He wants a perfect cloned body of his own DNA, enhanced with all of his anatomical improvements, so he can finally transfer his brain into it.
He sees us, the old race, as an evolutionary dead end riddled with disease, irrationality, and inefficiency.
And his creations, the so-called new race, are the solution. They are described as exquisitely efficient organic machines.
They're disease immune, they heal rapidly because of that double circulatory system, and they aren't educated, they are inculcated with data. They have knowledge without the benefit of experience or wisdom or error.
And he exercises total control. His own wife, Erica IV, is one of these creations. She also has 2 hearts. He tries to grant them freedom, but only in, non-essential areas like clothing or what they eat.
But when it comes to purpose, loyalty, and sexual matters, they are rigidly programmed to obey. They are indentured servants, just dressed up as companions.
So if Victor is the creator, the philosophical father of this horrific new species, then the mysterious figure Carson encountered, hiding in Allwine's black apartment.
That's the first creation, the original monster.
Deucalion.
He's a figure of immense scale and power, deeply scarred. Specifically, his face is partially ruined.
A consequence of his maker's violence. Yes, and he avoids Victor's name. Instead, he identifies himself with Greek mythology. Deucalion, the son of Prometheus, suggesting a lineage tied to creation and to suffering. He's living quietly, working shifts at the Lux Theater, just hiding in plain sight.
And the sources confirm his origin story is this blend of 19th century horror and cutting-edge reanimation. He was created 2 centuries ago from the cadavers of criminals.
We have the grim inventory, the hands of a strangler, the eyes of an axe murderer.
And those 2 hearts, one from an arsonist and one from a child molester. Victor's scientific pride was matched only by the morally bankrupt source material he chose to use.
But the life force that animated this construct wasn't just Victor's science. It was the energy drawn from a massive storm of the century. And that lightning strike fundamentally altered Deucalion. It gave him unique powers that Victor neither intended nor could ever replicate.
And what's fascinating here is the nature of that power. It's not magic, it's hyperscience. The lightning gave him an understanding of the quantum structure of the universe.
Which is why he can do that simple, mesmerizing trick of making a quarter vanish and reappear mid-flip. It's the trick Carson's brother, Arnie, later obsesses over trying to replicate with his own pennies.
His ability to manipulate the quantum structure means he can manipulate physical probability at a fundamental level. He confirmed this power grants him something just short of immortality.
He's terrifyingly durable, capable of enduring physical damage that would instantly obliterate any human. He is a living, walking contradiction to Victor's engineered efficiency, a creature of unintended consequence.
But despite this massive scale and quantum ability, Victor secured his control with a devastating psychological fatal flaw.
Deucalion tells Carson directly that Victor embedded programmed injunctions against 2 things.
Against suicide and against taking violent action against his maker.
That control mechanism just reflects Victor's ultimate hubris.
Deucalion revealed that he tried to act against Victor long ago, and Victor, quote, nearly killed me, has his face so damaged.
So Victor essentially created a self-policing, physically invincible army that is psychologically forbidden from ever turning on its general.
And that programming is the root cause of the existential despair that plagues the entire new race. Victor created beings superior to man in every physical way, but denied them the ultimate human freedom, self-determination, even in the act of ending one's own life.
This brings us to the core tragedy that the investigation uncovers: the paradox of perfection. These creatures, intellectually and physically superior, immune to disease, rapid healers.
They're suffering from crippling, unresolvable despair. They feel profoundly incomplete. They lack free will and see themselves as what they truly are: indentured servants to a narcissistic creator.
We see this despair everywhere in Victor's circle. You take Erica Ford, Victor's wife. She's constantly reading poetry by Emily Dickinson.
Poetry that focuses on the value of simple, natural, everyday things.
Right. It's a desperate, programmed attempt to prevent her manufactured emotions from ripening toward despair. The new race lacks meaning and purpose because Victor's utilitarian, materialistic philosophy stripped them of the capacity for irrational, profound human connection.
And the suicide prescription is the most brutal illustration of this. It explains the energetic anger in Bobby Allwine's Black Apartment. Carson notes the scores of crescent-shaped punctures gouged into the black vinyl chair arms.
He was repeatedly trying to dig his own inhumanly strong fingernails into the upholstery. It's this contained, impotent rage.
And those hundreds of razor blades, they weren't for self-mutilation. They were a monument to failure. Each one a testament to the ironclad effectiveness of Victor's programming. They couldn't even choose the void.
And this existential crisis is the true design flaw that Victor just completely ignored.
Before we move on, we have to talk about another crucial element of Victor's control mechanism that the sources reveal.
You mean Karloff?
I mean Karloff. He fundamentally changes the scope of Victor's advanced science. Karloff isn't just a creation, he's a tool of surveillance and terror.
He's a fully functional human head preserved in a tank.
Endowed with powerful telekinetic abilities, Victor uses Karloff to monitor and mentally influence the new race.
The sources reveal Karloff was actively used to try and incite murder. Specifically, Erica Ford, desperate to break Victor's control, tried to use her mind, guided by Karloff, to incite patricide.
But the nano devices in her brain, placed there by Victor, instantly checked that attempt. They induced paralyzing pain just for the thought of treason.
So Victor doesn't just program action, he programs thought.
This is a level of control that just transcends mere slavery. The new race isn't even allowed to contemplate rebellion. Their despair is a controlled variable.
Which brings us back to the unexpected hero or villain of this section, Jonathan Harker, the detective who kept trying to insert himself into the investigation.
He was, in fact, one of Victor's creations, the true copycat killer.
His physical appearance already signaled his unnaturalness. That bleached, parboiled red hair, his unsettling eyes that looked like a gas flame. He tried desperately to mask it all with a conventional detective persona.
But his killings weren't for artistic vanity like Prevost. Harker's quest was purely philosophical, just executed with a scalpel.
He was hunting for the soul, or, more precisely, the physical source of human contentment. His victims were people he determined were truly happy and complete.
Like Jenna Parker, a dry cleaner who was described as a genuine sweetie who just loved life.
And he dissected them, trying to locate the physical gland of happiness or that special something his race lacked.
Harker's motive elevates him from a simple serial killer to this deeply tragic figure driven by existential hunger. And this confirms the true nature of the Allwine murder.
It was an act of mercy.
A profound, if grotesque, mercy. Harker was Allwine's friend. Allwine desperately wanted to die, and Harker, whose programming against murder had finally broken down due to his own despair, committed the act of kindness. Allwine was physically forbidden from performing on himself.
Harker gave his friend the freedom to die.
The journey into Harker's desperation culminates in his attic hideout, the Go-Nuts room, which Carson and Michael, guided by Deucalion, end up exploring.
And this is more than a stash room. It's a physical, layered map of Harker's failed search for any kind of belief system.
The centerpiece was a massive wall-sized collage. Deucalion explained that the layers represented Harker's systematic, doomed attempts to fill the void of having no soul. The surface layer was traditional gods: Christ, Buddha, Hindu deities.
When religious faith failed to provide meaning,
He ripped those away to reveal the second layer: symbols of violent political and racial dogma, Nazi symbols, and a god of violent social change and racial purity.
And when that failed to provide a purpose or a sense of belonging, Harker tore that away too, revealing the third layer.
Demons and devils, suggesting an embrace of pure, structured evil as a substitute for meaning.
And what was underneath the demons?
According to Deucalion, the most useless gods of all, psychologists. Freud, Jung, Skinner. Harker had exhausted religion, politics, and pure evil, only to resort to self-analysis, which was equally incapable of providing purpose.
The entire cycle illustrates that Victor created a race so efficient they had no need for faith, dogma, or deep psychological meaning, and the result was just chronic, crushing emptiness.
And this philosophical breakdown had a terrifying biological consequence. Harker confessed to Father Duchesne that he was splitting.
He delusionally believed he was going to reproduce, a capability Victor had strictly denied the new race to maintain control.
He saw his subcutaneous face like a death mask moving beneath his caging abdomen. This was not a birth. This was a malignant biological rejection of Victor's design. His programmed perfection was tearing itself apart, desperately trying to externalize the core, unresolvable conflict he felt.
The chase begins when Victor arrives at Father Duchesne's rectory to reacquire Harker, who manages to escape. Carson and Michael track Harker to his apartment building, and this is where we get the truly visceral, terrifying measure of Victor's science.
Carson uses a finishing weapon, a 12-gauge shotgun. She unloads on Harker at close range, hitting him in the hips and knees with a massive spread of pellets.
And he staggers, crashes against a wall.
But
he keeps moving. This isn't human resilience, it's just monstrous recovery.
Then he throws himself out of his apartment window, plunging an estimated 35 feet to the alley pavement.
Not only does he survive, he springs immediately to his feet. I mean, we're talking catastrophic, life-ending trauma that he simply shrugs off. The sources emphasize that gumption is not the correct word for this.
No. The final confrontation takes place on a warehouse roof during a ferocious storm, a fitting Gothic backdrop for the ultimate rejection of the creator.
Michael pursues Harker. But what he finds up there is no longer the detective. Harker is now a hunched and twisted and grotesque form, moving on what Michael perceives might be 6 limbs. His body is an active, agonizing transformation.
Michael witnesses the horror up close, 2 voices quarreling wordlessly from this form, and a clear view of a malignant, dwarfish creature emerging from Harker's chest.
A slit-mouthed and wicked-eyed parasitic entity that seemed to be actively controlling Harker's final movements. This was the physical manifestation of his despair tearing itself out of his body.
And in the chaos of the storm, Deucalion materializes. Proving his quantum-based power isn't just a parlor trick. Michael witnesses the colossal figure rip a steel-loading dock door completely off its hinges just to get into the warehouse.
It highlights his sheer, storm-born, destructive force.
And Deucalion executes the ultimate brutal act of mercy. He seizes both Harker and the grotesque emergent creature clinging to him and throws them both from the 40-foot roof.
The original creation intervenes to end the second creation's suffering and prevent the spread of that new malignant biology.
Harker's body is utterly destroyed by the fall this time. His chest and abdomen are caved in, confirming that the entity finally came out of him.
But the nightmare isn't over. The pale, trollish figure, the result of Harker's broken genetics, manages to escape. It scrapes its way across the alley and vanishes into a manhole, deep into the unseen infrastructure of the city.
A new, uncontrolled life form has been born from a creation's despair.
And the threat is already escalating. It's moving closer to home. While the detectives were consumed with Harker, Victor's facility, Hands of Mercy, suffers another loss. Randall 6, another escaped creation, driven by programmed pain and existential confusion, is now loose.
And Randall's escape demonstrated the rigid, algorithmic nature of the new race mind. He navigated the massive facility using the letters of his own name and simple crossword puzzle logic. It's a testament to the way Victor inculcated data rather than allowing for organic thought.
And he's driven by a singular, crushing directive, tracking happiness.
And this is where the conflict slams directly into Carson's private life, proving that Victor's war is now deeply personal. Randall 6, sensing what the new race covets most, arrives at Carson's house.
He hides in the crawl space, drawn there by the profound, radiant happiness emanating from the floor above.
That beacon of joy is her autistic brother, Arnie O'Connor. Arnie, the deeply flawed, cherished, and entirely vulnerable human Carson risks her life to protect, is now the target.
The new race, unable to manufacture meaning or happiness, is now hunting for the purest expression of it in the old race. The search for the special something has found its way to an innocent heart.
So what does this all mean? We followed a standard homicide investigation, the kind Carson and Michael handle every day, and it rapidly exposed a 200-year-old brilliant scientist determined to replace humanity with a perfect engineered race.
But the deep dive into the source material reveals that these perfect creations are fundamentally, tragically flawed.
Victor, in his megalomaniacal quest for control and efficiency, he stripped them of the very things that define human existence: vulnerability, irrational emotion, and free will.
They are superior, disease-immune machines, but they suffer from this programmed, crushing despair. They can't pursue meaning or faith or even self-determination because of Victor's self-preserving injunctions.
We saw the violent consequences of this flaw in Bobby Allwine, who had to solicit his own death, in Harker, who mutilated happy people seeking a physical gland of joy.
And in Erica 4, whose nano-device-controlled brain proves that Victor designed beings who weren't even free to think rebellion.
This tragic paradox highlights the profound, unquantifiable value of the flawed old race. Victor wanted rational automatons, but instead he created beings desperate for the irrational and the profound, a soul, joy, purpose.
The human capacity for error, pain, and eventual decay is what enables us to seek meaning and achieve genuine, non-programmed happiness.
And the final scene is one of radical choice. Carson, faced with these overwhelming facts, a 200-year-old genius, a sophisticated network, physically invincible opponents, she admitted the reality of the situation. She said, "We're dead."
But, armed with the impossible truth of Deucalion's quantum reality, she chose not to surrender to fate.
She places her hand, and Michael places his over that penny in Deucalion's fist, the symbol of the new, mutable reality they now inhabit.
She rejects the role of the inevitable victim in Victor's plan. She chooses to fight, not because she can win based on logic, but because the alternative is to let Victor succeed in extinguishing the very human joy she protects at home.
Screw fate. We fight.
The new race seeks what humans possess naturally: a soul, happiness, the ability to die by choice. So if engineered physical perfection inevitably leads to a state of desperate existential meaninglessness, what does that suggest about the true value of our own chaotic, flawed existence?
It turns out that having the capacity for pain, the freedom to choose your own destruction, and the sheer irrationality of falling in love with a maple glazed buttermilk donut.
That's what makes life worth living. It's something for you to think about the next time you feel just a little bit too perfectly and wonderfully human.